People have this idea that everybody who seeks insolvency advice is some type of criminal mastermind, and it's absolute nonsense.
The client started to mask the profits that there were and effectively knocked me for a substantial amount of money.
Right, so you can't pay your HMRC corporation tax bill. It's about 15 or 20 grand. You don't know what to do. This call is going to allow you to listen in to a live inquiry with Mark, who's come on the Director First YouTube channel. By the way, Chris Worden, Director First, thanks for tuning in. So what these calls are about is I'm taking live calls that I get during the day, and if I think, you know what, that's going to be helpful, I'm asking the director, will they come on the channel for 5-10 minutes, talk about their inquiry, and I'm going to give some live advice, so it may help you watching. Mark, thank you very, very much for joining the podcast. I really, really do appreciate you sticking your head above the parapet and you know, discussing this inquiry in the hope that it might help other people. So yeah, thank you for coming on.
You're more than welcome. Hi there, Chris. Thanks for your for taking the call and for your advice.
Mark, can you just go through what the problem is? Tell me what's going on.
Yeah, sure. So I was working on a contract. I have a business consultancy business. I was working on a contract for a client, basically expanding their business from one region globally to multinational. And I had a contract with them where I was on a percentage of profits. And as we were very successful in the expansion, but as we got towards the end of the contract, the client started to mask the profits that there were and effectively knocked me for a substantial amount of money that was due, that I tried through litigation to reclaim, but I had a very difficult contract with them and so on, and that wasn't possible. So as a result, because of other earnings that there have been over the year, I had a corporation tax liability. But because the money that I was expecting to come in at the end of this contract didn't materialize, I've been unable to pay that. So yeah, the position is that I now have a debt that I can't pay.
Okay, and so very interesting point for people who are watching out there. This is people have this idea that everybody who seeks insolvency advice is some type of criminal mastermind who's, purposefully gone out there to not pay their debts, and it's absolute nonsense. This is a classic example. Someone who's clearly, paid tax over the years, worked very hard. Put into the public purse, but through no fault of their own, somebody has not paid them. Now, when you're very much a one-man band, aren't you? It's you use your limited company as a consultancy. Absolutely. There's no staff. And so, yeah, it's important to see that there's one creditor, and it's HMRC corporation tax. Corporation tax is the tax that you are charged on profits. Although we're all meant to, in an ideal world, we would put 20% away of our profits from our management accounts every month. The likelihood is most directors don't, because like in your head, when you got this money paid in, you would have had more than enough to clear the HMRC tax liability.
Exactly. And post-COVID, we were running hand to mouth. I mean, it was literally just trying to keep going. So cash flow was essential there. We needed the money that was coming through, that was trickling through, to manage the business day to day, knowing or expecting that there would be a substantial profit at the end of this contract.
And it didn't come. Okay, so just roughly, in big handfuls, how much is it you owe in corporation tax?
It's about 15,000. Just a little more.
Okay, yeah. So a scary amount for anybody that hasn't got it, right? So let's have a look at what the options are, right? You're not trading in this business anymore, have you? That sort of when that venture sort of went south, you've not really done any business in the company since. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, there's been nothing since.
Okay, so the business has stopped trading. The business is insolvent, and all insolvent means is there's three ways we can look at insolvency. It's called the corporate insolvency test. Number one, can you afford to pay your debts when they fall due? No. Liabilities are more than your assets. I did have a look at your accounts before I come on the call. There are no assets in this business. There's probably a computer and a laptop, but they're certainly not worth 15 grand. So you also failed the balance sheet test. Liabilities are more than the assets. And there is another test that you don't fail yet, and that's called the legal action test. But if your business fails just one of the corporate insolvency tests, it's a clear sign you're insolvent. You need to pick the phone up, which is what you've done. When you become insolvent, directors' responsibilities change. And instead of trying to make profit for the shareholders, you in this case, you've got to make sure that the creditors' positions aren't any worse, and you've took insolvency advice right away. So what are the options? Well, option one is you actually go to the revenue and you go, listen, I can't afford to pay you, but I'd like to arrange something called a time to pay arrangement. And that's where the revenue will allow you to pay this debt over an extended period of time. It could be 12 months, 24 months. In some circumstances, they'll allow you to pay over 3 years. There's going to be interest accruing on a time to pay arrangement. And it's a case by case basis. They don't offer it everyone. In this scenario, I think they probably would. But the reason why I'm not going to suggest that you do that, Mark, is you've stopped trading. It's like if you're going to pay this over a period of time, it means you're going to have to pay it into the business personally. So I don't think a time to pay arrangement is the right scenario here. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions on that?
Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense.
Okay, so what's the next option? Well, the next option is you're insolvent. So I'm sure if you took another 5 calls with people in my industry, they would be saying to you, the best advice for you is to liquidate that business. And there's an argument to say that they're not wrong. But the problem is you're going to be charged to liquidate a company of this size, even though there's only one creditor, it's 15 grand that it owes. Any decent insolvency firm, and I highlight the word decent, they're going to charge you 4 grand plus VAT because we're all mega busy. So that's going to be £4,800. And I know there's no assets in the company and there's no cash in the company. And even though that there's some money due into the company, it's not recoverable, is it? So if you did go to liquidate this business, yes, it would write off the 15 grand to HMRC, but you would personally need to find nigh on £5,000, which I believe is going to be a bit of a bridge too far for you.
That would be a bit too much of a stretch right now. Yeah, that's just not feasible right now.
Okay, so we're left with option 3, and this is actually what I believe you should do. Now, I'm not making light of your situation because 15 grand is a lot of money to me, and no, it's a lot of money to you. But to the revenue, it's a very, very small amount. So my advice is I think you should write to the revenue, and I'm going to give you a template that I've already emailed you. And the template basically says, I'm writing to you to inform that my company has become insolvent and ceased trading on today's date. I am unable to pay the liquidation costs. The company has no assets or any money left in the bank, nor is it due any money in that's recoverable. For these reasons, I am intending to file a DSO1 form at Companies House. Now, for those that don't know, a DSO1 form is a form you fill in to strike the company off. It costs you £10. Now, as long as you're writing to your creditors to let them know that you're intending to do this, you can't get in any trouble for it. Now, it also says, if this is not acceptable to you, I invite you to petition to wind the business up. I attach the DSO1 form stating my intention to dissolve the company, and if no one objects, this dissolution will take place 3 months from the above date. Should you have any further information, please let me know. So what you're doing is you owe a HMRC a little bit of money, and it is a little bit of money in their eyes, and you're saying to them, I'm going to strike this company off at Companies House because I cannot afford the liquidation fees. You're inviting HMRC to, if they want to liquidate your business for you, in which case they would incur the costs. They're not going to do it at this level. But for those that are watching that are thinking, well, what happens if they do this, Chris? I'll tell you what would happen. They'd be doing you a favor. they'd be winding you up in the courts. You get a date with the official receiver. You do an interview with the official receiver, much like this, although they won't put it on YouTube. And you would tell them what's gone on, and no further action would happen. I can assure you.
And what would happen then? Would they then say go ahead with the DSO one, the striking off?
Well, no. If they did it, if they object to this, if HMRC object to this strike off, and they might do the first time, you just resubmit it. At £15,000, the revenue are not interested. And you know what you could do is you could pick the phone up to the revenue today to tell them the advice that I've given you, and they will agree with it.
Right.
At £15,000, and instead of you paying £4,800 to liquidate, which is still an option for you, but I wouldn't take the job. I know you can't afford it. I'd rather do you a good turn. And this will eventually go away, and it'll cost you £10. It's sad that it's happened, but this is the solution to your problem, and it's not cost you any money. It's probably cost you 15 minutes in time. Mark, have you received the email that I sent you with all this relevant information on?
I have a template here, so I've already started to fill it in actually while we've been speaking on the call. So that's absolutely.
Does it make sense to you? Have you got any questions?
Chris, all I can say is huge thank you. I mean, genuinely, I've been worrying about this for some time. I didn't know where to go with it. I thought liquidation was probably the route, but the cost was prohibitive. To have some straight up advice like this is absolutely incredible. It's such a weight off my mind. So thank you so much. I really genuinely appreciate it.
Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your time. If you're watching this, guys, you owe the HMRC a small amount of money, 10, 15, maybe 20 grand. Maybe strike off's the right option for you, but always write to the HMRC. If you don't write to him, that's a problem. And bear in mind, you cannot do this if you still owe a bounce back loan. If you still owe a bounce back loan, you cannot use the strike off method. So, Mark, welcome. Thank you for joining us. God bless you, my friend. And I'm going to stop the recording now. If you want some advice, guys, if you like our channel, please like, please subscribe, ask us any questions, and we'll do our best to answer. Take care and goodbye.